All right, guys, Dan Fike is helping his neighbor out, and they're going to sharpen the knives on his John Deere chopper. I'm just going to do a quick thing here. I came in to get fertilizer, but let's just help him out quick. On the chopper itself, right here is your shaft you hook to. Where's my hand? Right here. This lower shaft. So you just take unhook the yoke from here and you put it down there, but unhook it from the tractor first, all together. Just unhook it. So a neighbor needed to borrow my stone, but your stone bolts on this piece. That piece will be sitting like that. This bar here is turned down. That's a guide, so when you swap knives, you use that to set your knives to. And so, you know, you can see as the knives clear it kind of deal, but during harvest it's locked up like that. So what I would do is these are supposed to be at 120, but for sure hit them to 85 pounds on a torque wrench, all them bolts. Turn that sucker over, put spray paint on it, so you know where you started. And it's not a bad idea to dust a little paint, but you'll see the shininess. But hit them all with a torque wrench just to make sure, because you're going to spin this sucker backwards and we don't want it to explode or a knife come out of there. So hit that with a torque wrench. And then before we get sharpening, we want to make sure to put our feeder house in neutral, our gearbox up here into neutral as well, so we're not running that feeder house. But he was also wondering how a guy changes speeds, and that's right here. You got this sprocket assembly back here, and by going from big to small, you change the cut, how fast. So the smaller the gear back there, the finer the cut's gonna be. You see, it spins this slip clutch slower and spins your feed roll slower. Here's your shear bar. Here's the start of your cutter bar. Here's your one adjuster. So it ain't bad. A guy can pop these 3 bolts off. I don't even remember if you gotta take this one out, but you zip these 3 bolts out, take them off this side, and you can take them off. I'm trying to go fast here, guys. You can take them off of this side and hammer them out, maybe pop this wheel off, and that cutter bar comes right out, and then you can inspect it to make sure you're on a good side. It is reversible. They're not that bad. They make rebuild kits for these assemblies. They should turn really stiff, but not, you know, clicky, snap, pop, snap. They should just turn stiff enough to be smooth. So you've hit these with the torque wrench, you're good to go. Put your PTO shaft on the lower stub shaft. Oh, this plate was sitting up in here and the knife would normally hold it, but that's been removed. Put your shaft, drop your shaft, start the PTO, put your feeder house in neutral. Only run the engine 1,000 to 1,200 RPM. Oh, before you do that, I come back here by hand and I crank this knife down until it touches the stone, down until it touches the knife with the engine off. Then I back up like 10, 12 turns. Now you start your PTO, get it spinning, and you'll hear it. Then you know you only have to turn this down. You know, you can turn it 8 times quick, and then your last couple times turn it slow. And at the same time, there's a handle here. You're moving back and forth. Right here, that bolts onto there. And so you'd be moving this back and forth, and then give it a turn or two and give it a sweep. Give this a good grease and so it slides nice. Give it another couple turns and keep sweeping until you hear it tick. You know, tick, 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 tick. It might go away, and tick, 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 tick. It might go away. Then you just give it a turn, and then you know, you just keep going. Let that tick kind of go away a little bit, and give it another turn and kind of go away, and you'll hear it. If you get a little too aggressive on that, she'll really start to growl. But you know, you just give it a turn and let it tick for a few minutes, and let the tick kind of go away, and give it a turn, and just take your time. It's loud as heck, but just take your time sweeping, you know, and just go slow. And if right here's a super high spot and over there's a low spot, well, you can let it sit here for a moment. They're not going to blue out on you by any means. What I mean is you're not creating enough heat to turn these suckers blue. But, you know, let her tick for a few seconds and then move across. And then come back and let it sit for a couple seconds and move across. Wherever that high spot is, let it sit for a couple seconds and then move around. And so then you do that for a little bit. You stop, you check, okay, the knives are sharp. They don't have to be freaking razor sharp to do a good job, but you got them sharp enough for how you want. Now you start with these 2 bolts. You take it, you 2 or 3 turns, 2 or 3 turns, 2 or 3 turns, and pretty soon you'll hear a tick. It'll start to tick. When it does start to tick, then you bring the other side in the next 2 or 3 turns so it gets a pretty good tick going, and then you back them out, you know, quickly, 5, 10 turns, and however many turns you go, whether it's 5 turns, 10 turns, it don't matter. All you're doing is counting how many turns you take it out, and you don't have to go fast at all. Once it's ticking, you just take your time. 1, 2, you know, just relax and enjoy the day. Take that sucker out, them 10 turns, and then you bring it in 9 turns. If you take it 10, bring it in 9 turns, you shouldn't hear any ticking. And then at that point, I'd go a quarter turn on each one until you hear just the start of a tiny tick, and then I'd stop. Then what you did is you took the backlash out of the adjusters, and now you're holding that cutter bar right tight against that cutter head. What would happen is if you back these up, you know, 2 or 3 turns each, and until that tick stops, or 4 or 5 turns until the tick stops, as soon as you start feeding, pretty soon it's going to push that backlash out from that cutter bar, and then you're going to have long stripped haylage back there, not nice chopped haylage. When you get into grass like this, sometimes it's hard to feed in enough. You know, this one's got the good stainless steel rolls because of the metal track, but sometimes them long stemmy grasses, they slip right out from each other very easily. So if you don't have enough pressure up here, then you got the big springs here. They're adjustable down at the very bottom. Then you'll get some long stuff. But if you take your time and do that, and got a good job of knives, she'll do a fairly good job on everything. They're not quite the machine that some of the competitors were, but for a machine that you could just run forever. They were a machine that ran forever, and you could run a lot of material through them. And they just kept going. But that, you know, I went fast because I want to keep moving on myself, but that's the gist of it. He said he's running it with a 1066 or a little over 100 horsepower tractor. Don't be scared. Just shift down. Make that tractor snort. But the neighbors ran a 3-row corn head with a 40-20, a hot 40-20 on this thing. Yep, he went in first or second gear, but it kept that sucker full enough to do a good job, and at least he was chopping. But Dan, I hope that helps. If you guys have questions, obviously leave them below. If you haven't subscribed yet, well, there's that red button over there. I'm going to start pushing that subscriptions. But yeah, hope that helps. And any questions, keep asking. I absolutely love doing these kind of videos. And so, all right, guys, I got to get my fertilizer tank out to the wagon, or out to the field so I can keep side dressing.